South African Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan summoned by police division and may face charges in relation to an investigation into a suspected rogue unit at the State Tax Service. African banking group Atlas Mara Limited posts a 71% drop in first half net profit. Plus, Burkina Faso to issue a 50 billion CFA franc 7-year bond with a 6.5% coupon on September 1. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Business Incorporated, coming to you live from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Chimizi Obi Iwago. Well, we begin with that story that South African Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan has been summoned by an elite police division and may face charges in relation to an investigation into a suspected rogue unit of the State Tax Service. Gordhan and former officials at the South African Revenue Service must report to the Hawks Police Division on Thursday morning, where they will receive a warning statement given to someone before they are charged with an offense. A letter of one of the SARS officials seen by some reporters says the summons relates to contravening surveillance regulations. Uncertainty over leadership at the Finance Ministry will worry investors as Africa's most developed economy teeters on the edge of recession and credit rating agencies consider downgrading it to junk status by year-end. Meanwhile, South Africa's rand tumbled to its weakest in a month and yields on bonds spiked today after the finance minister was summoned. In the meantime, South Africa's headline consumer inflation slowed to 6% year-on-year in July from 6.3% in June. Data from Statistics South Africa shows prices were up 0.8% on a month-on-month basis after a 0.6% increase previously. Core inflation, which excludes the prices of food, non-alcoholic beverages, petrol and energy, rose slightly to 5.7% year-on-year in July from 5.6% and to 0.6% month-on-month from 0.4%. And Atlas Mara Limited, the African banking group co-founded by Bob Diamond, says decline in African currencies, a worse macroeconomic backdrop and market liquidity tightness across a number of trading markets led to a 71% drop in first half net profit. The company also said that it has executed a group-wide cost-cutting program, which includes 30% to 35% headcount reduction across the company's shared services and center operations to align cost base with current revenue environment. It anticipates the program save $8 million annually from 2017. And for the 6 months to June end, the company recorded a net profit of $1.2 million, down from $4.2 million net profit recorded in the year-ago period. Net interest income fell to $45.2 million from $49.4 million. And looking globally now, the world's largest advertising group, WPP, says it is grinding out growth as clients remain cautious amid slower global growth. The company reported pre-tax profit up 15.8% to £690 million in the first half of the year. Now, the advertising giant says worldwide GDP growth seems to have slowed in the second half of the last year and into the new year. In its release, WPP says there was a limited likelihood of a worldwide recession, but named Russia, Brazil and the UK as possible countries that could see 2 quarters of negative growth. Well, now let's cross over to Frankfurt with a lot of stories and data coming out from that end. DWTV Channels TV financial correspondent Javier Arguedas joins me now. Good afternoon, Javier. We've seen the latest figure on the German economy showing an impressive budget surplus of 18.5 billion euros, but a slowing economic growth. What do investors make of it?
Well, investors were anticipating these numbers. They were expected, so as long as there are no big surprises there, investors will react with calm, I would say. Of course, that budget surplus is very impressive, but let's not forget that it's also one of the reasons why the opposition here in Germany criticizes the government, essentially accusing the government of focusing too much on maintaining this budget surplus instead of making crucial investments, especially in infrastructure that is and will be very important for the economic development of the country. So the more we see those numbers in the budget surplus, well, the more criticism we will probably meet at the other side. As for the economic growth, it is true that it is slower. That is a little bit disappointing, but you have to compare that to the forecasts that we had at the beginning of the year. There was a lot of fear about how the economy would develop, considering, for example, the slower economic growth in China. Then we had the Brexit fears. So all in all, it seems like things are not that bad, and that is big relief not only for the German government but also for the Eurozone as a whole, as most of the countries are seeing at least moderate advances instead of a big scenario of uncertainty.
Now, another interesting story coming out from Germany is that the largest car maker there, Volkswagen, has put an end to a dispute with its suppliers that halted production for several days. But then it seems like VW lost the battle. Why?
Well, because the more details we find out about this dispute, the more it is clear that it was Volkswagen that made itself dependent on these suppliers, and that is something that can be extremely dangerous. The problem is that nowadays car makers do not only give production to third-party companies, but they also let these companies develop and design the products, therefore, of course, saving costs for research and development. But the downside of that strategy is that, of course, you have one supplier that makes a crucial piece without which you cannot produce. And that is exactly what we saw here. So there has been a lot of criticism to the company in general, to the management of Volkswagen, because you should never let production stop no matter what happens. And you should probably also have a backup plan, which is clearly lacking. That is a very difficult discussion because we do not know whether Volkswagen will somehow change the strategy. It is, of course, more costly, but it would also assure production in the future. So there will be a lot of debate here in Germany in a company that once again is making headlines for the bad reasons.
Well, I guess that strategy called outsourcing, a lot of companies are actually using that strategy. In any case, well, the financial world seems to be waiting for clarity over the U.S. monetary policy. U.S. Fed Chief Janet Yellen is expected to speak on Friday. How is the mood 2 days before that speech?
Well, the mood is, I would say, in a tense calm. On the one hand, we simply do not know exactly what the Fed is going to do, so the only thing you can do is guess. Until then, we will see a lot of caution in the markets. It's also important to consider that we are in the midst of the summer here in Europe, where traditionally there is a lot less movement in the market. So any transaction that you see happening will have a bigger impact in how, say, the DAX, the main German index, develops. So we are seeing a lot of volatility, the signs and colors changing pretty quickly, and that will probably be sustained at least until Friday if we hear some clear words from Janet Yellen that give us a clear sign about what is to come. If not, that scenario will probably continue that way. So tense calm here in Frankfurt. Back over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Javier, for your time there. We move on now. 4 of Europe and the U.S.'s biggest banks have joined forces to work on a digital-only cash system which they hope to launch in 2 years' time. BNY Mellon, Deutsche Bank and Santander, plus UK brokerage ICAP, will join UBS to work on the utility settlement coin, which they hope will be a quicker and more efficient alternative to the current clearing and settlement process. The coin will be aimed at banks' institutional clients and will use a blockchain, the technology behind Bitcoin. UBS says the USC could decrease the complexity and time taken to settle trades, cutting risk and improving capital efficiency for users. A Nigeria-based Pan-African lender UBA Group remits NNPC NLNG's monies into the Treasury single account. Details in a moment. To stay with us.